Why are some conversations exhausting, even when the other person is friendly? Not rude, not aggressive, not unpleasant, just tiring. Very often, it is because every conversation slowly becomes about them. You tell them you had a difficult week, and they say, "Oh yes, I had something like that once." And before you know it, you are listening to a 12-minute story about their job, their holiday, their back pain, their difficult colleague, and somehow also their dog. Lovely dog, probably. But still, Now, this is tricky, because talking about yourself is not wrong. If you never share anything about yourself, you can become boring, distant, or invisible, especially at work, in a network event, or when you meet new people. You also need to position yourself. You need to show who you are, what you know, what you have experienced, what you stand for. So, the lesson is not never talk about yourself. The real lesson is this: there is a difference between taking your place and taking over the room. That difference is social intelligence. People with low social intelligence often do not notice when the spotlight has moved. So someone else starts a story, then they just kind of jump in. They recognize something familiar and they add their own example, but then they forget to give the conversation back. That right there is the problem. It's not really the story itself, it's the failure to return. A socially intelligent person might say, "I had something similar once," but then they add, "Not exactly the same, of course. What was it like for you?" That small question honestly changes everything. Now, your experience, it actually helps the conversation. It doesn't steal it. Sure, the same thing applies to advice. Someone says, "I'm struggling with this." And right away we say, "Well, you should do this." But sometimes people don't really need a solution first. What they need is space. They need someone to just stay with their story for more than 8 seconds. That's why, these days, asking a follow-up question has almost become a social luxury. A good question is a small gift. It says, "Stay here. I am not done with your story yet. So before you advise, ask. Before you compare, listen. And before you tell your own story, check whether the other person has finished theirs. Ask, listen, check." But what if you are dealing with someone who always does this? Someone who turns every topic back to themselves? First, do not judge too quickly. Not everyone who talks too much is arrogant. Some people are nervous, some are excited, some are trying to connect, some simply never learned how to share space. But you are still allowed to protect the conversation. You can gently bring it back. "Interesting, but let me finish what I was saying." Or, "I recognize that. What happened for me was this." Or simply, "Before we move on, I want to finish this point." That is not rude. That is taking back the space. And if someone never asks, never listens, and never gives the conversation back, then you are not really in a conversation, you are in an audience. And you are allowed to leave the audience. Captain Help's rule: share but send it back. A good conversation is not a stage, it is shared space. And social intelligence is knowing when to speak, when to listen, and when your story has become a little too large for the room. Captain Help, smarter every day, in every way.